Well, I just got back from being in Pennsylvania for a week for a wedding, and now I'm in the only place that I could think of where I could have filmed that intro with the lighting, which is the local archery club at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So some of you may have heard of a game from like 2009 or 12 or 8 or something called Alan Wake, about a funny guy with a little flashlight. Well, it was recently announced that this game is getting a remake. So I think now is a great time to ask the question, why? Should it get one? What is the point of a remake? What are we doing? Why can't we make games that are new and not like old ones that we had? So let's go ahead and take a look at Alan Wake and see if it's actually good or if it's just one of those weird cult classics for freaks like the fucking Twin Peaks game. What is that called? I'm forgetting. Put it up on the screen. Anyway, I gotta hurry up and get out of here before somebody notices that I'm talking to myself and walking around like a psychopath on the security camera.
This is Agent Nightingale, FBI! Get him up, Hemingway! You're under arrest! You move a muscle, I'll unload right in your goddamn face! Stay right where you are, Slane! What are you? I'm standing right here, you goddamn maniac!
Cops is filmed on location with the men and women of law enforcement.
Alan Wake is a horror-themed third-person shooter from Remedy Entertainment, the same guys that brought us the original Max Payne. You guys know Remedy. You know Sam Lake. Come on, he's the face guy. He makes the face. Alan Wake was also released in 2010, which is the year that I graduated high school, which is very fucked up to have to say out loud in real time. For some reason, I've noticed that a lot of games that came out in this sort of 2008 to 2012-ish window of time have a very weird air about them. They sort of exist in a time that feels like it should be nostalgia, but just sort of isn't. I mean, I'm sure this is a generational thing. Like, if you played this game when you were 10, I bet it was nuts. But for me, personally, and for what seems to be the broader culture, this is just 4 lost years. I don't know, man. It's a weird time period. There were a lot of games in that 4-year Twilight Zone that just seem like they don't get the praise they deserve for being pretty good, just because everybody kind of forgot about them. And since Alan Wake is getting a remaster soon, I thought, oh yeah, I remember Alan Wake. Was that game good? What the fuck was up with that? I remember I played it, but I didn't remember really integrating it. It seems like people are excited about a remaster though, so let's figure it out. Already I noticed that in this game's options, I can't turn off motion blur. So right off the bat, we're looking at a maximum of 7 out of 10. Alan Wake is sort of an archetypal post-Resident Evil 4 third-person shooter. Even the primary enemies you fight are basically just the Ganados from RE4. They throw farming equipment at you, they have chainsaws sometimes, they try to dodge your attacks. It's almost copy and paste. But, like all great games, there is a primary gimmick. Enemies are protected by shadows, and they can't be damaged unless the shadows are burned off with a light source. So, while the gameplay itself sort of feels a little less responsive than normal, and a little more awkward than normal, this light gimmick kind of carries a lot of the game's weight on its shoulders, just by being sort of fun to mess around with. Reflexively stunning enemies out of their attacks with the flashlight at close range always feels awesome when you can pull it off. Flashbangs are just grenades now. Doing area denial with flares is extremely satisfying, especially when you pull it off to do some slick shit, like start a generator or something. A flare gun is basically just a missile launcher now. Spotlight turret There's just so much you can do with this idea, but it also just sort of feels only partially delivered on, mostly due to this game's inability to actually make up its mind on what type of game it wants to be. Alan Wake really struggles with being pulled in 3 different directions between its story, its combat, and its horror themes. I've already kind of covered the combat, so I don't need to get very much more detailed on that front. You should probably be able to figure it out just by kind of getting a look at the footage that I'm showing right now. But in order to explain what I mean, I need to sort of explain the progression and how the combat system is integrated into the rest of the game as a whole. Like you would probably imagine, you start off with a flashlight and a revolver, and then later on, you get both bigger flashlights and bigger guns. The arsenal builds out over time to scale with the increased difficulty of the encounters exactly how you imagined that it would. All over the game you can find these secret markers that will only light up under a flashlight, that will lead you to secret areas that will always contain more ammo and other supplies to fight. It's particularly important that you find these if you're playing on harder difficulties, where enemies take more shots and ammo is more rare. All of this sounds pretty fun and standard, right? Well, here's where shit kind of starts to get a little disjointed. Alan Wake is broken up into chapters, and the chapters are sort of divided into their own subsections. Between chapters, your arsenal almost always resets, and there are long periods in the chapters themselves where your progression goes backwards or sideways. There's always going to be some point where you crash a car, or fall out of a helicopter, or do sick parkour jumps.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
Where you're going to lose all of your items and then have to get them back again. Now, to be clear, I get what the point of this is. The point is to actually give the player character a chance to have a horror game moment or two. And that makes sense because technically, on paper, this is a horror-themed game. Alan Wake is a horror writer, and this game sucks off Stephen King like it's Riley Reid and he's the only one that can get her dad to call her again. Is this joke too mean? I mean, she's a millionaire, right? Aren't we, like, allowed to make fun of them? Like, I've never made more than $25,000 in a year. Just let me have the mean jokes. Just let me be mean. That's all I've got. The point is, Alan Wake wants you to have a few moments of horror where you feel scared of the Shadow Boys and feel like you don't have enough resources to survive and get jump scared and shit. You know, like a survival horror game. The problem is, going back and forth between being Frank Castle in a tweed sport coat to a guy who is supposed to be scared is fucking jarring. Like, what is happening here? Make up your mind. I just tanked a direct hit from a combine harvester. This isn't horror. This is a Marvel film. He just reloaded a flashlight with the batteries without even turning it off. That's a superpower. Alan Wake is also a game that is very story-driven. So, to make matters even worse, not only is standard progression interrupted every time the game forgets it's trying to be a horror game, it's also interrupted every time some dickhead character needs to do the old follow me at walking pace so I can give you a massive exposition dump. These scenes are also almost always followed by you losing the entire arsenal you had built out. It's kind of insane to me that Alan Wake, as a game, would decide to proceed in this direction when it began development right off the heels of The Suffering, which was great at showing its story instead of telling it while being an action horror game, and Resident Evil 4, which is also a horror action game and is basically a masterclass in how to make linear progression work. Alan Wake's story itself is kind of tropey, but I think that's the point. You're supposed to be a writer, literally living in the horror tropes he used to read and later write about. Like, that's the bit. And because of that, I'm not really going to lean into tearing the story apart, because I really don't want to make a 40-minute Alan Wake video, and I think it's self-aware. I mean, watch this and tell me it's not self-aware.
Hey! Great!
had to figure a way out of this. Any second now, and Stucky would be knocking on the door with his axe like Nicholson in The Shining.
Hopefully at this point, you can kind of understand what I mean when I say that Alan Wake is disjointed and incoherent in terms of linear game design. Like, I just want to walk around in the woods and find secret boxes and shoot the shadow guys. Now, I should say, for the sake of clarity, because I know there are going to be pedantic nerds in my comment section that point this out, this interruption of linear progression is largely symbolic. Most of the time, after falling out of the helicopter or whatever, even though you lose most of your weapons and ammo, you'll get them back fairly quickly. This town just has huge dumpsters full of ammo for some reason. We do that in America, I guess. That being said, even when you take this into account, the stop-and-go progress still feels weird. I think a more smooth, linear direction would have massively helped this game's general vibe. All of this being said, despite its more annoying parts, the combat and light mechanics are so goofy and fun, they really just hard carry this entire game, especially its second half. Like, this part where you're defending a stage and an 80s metal song is blasting while you snipe dudes in the crowd and your friend is hitting them with spotlights and pyrotechnics. Like, come on, this is pure video games. And this, I think, is where we kind of get to the point of the video. I don't think what Alan Wake needs is a remaster or a remake. That's right, dumbass. You thought the title was clickbait? Wrong. I just take a long time to make an argument, stupid. What Alan Wake needs is a real successor. Something that can take this combat system and really get insane with it. Hey, real quick, editing rune, Jacob here. While I was editing this video, I found out that apparently a sequel was announced for this game a long time ago, and I just kind of missed it, and I guess it's supposed to be coming out next year, which probably is why they're releasing the remaster, to get hype going for the sequel. So all of the rest of the stuff that I'm about to say in this video, I'm hoping the sequel does, instead of some hypothetical other game. So we are excited for the sequel. Back to the video. Imagine a game where you start out with like a lighter or a candle, and then by the end you've got a heavy-duty portable spotlight. I want to see items with damage stats measured in lumens. Imagine having to really get strategic with flare placement and flare gun shots to block enemy pathing. Imagine arena shooter type level design during combat segments with all of this stuff going on. Maybe you can work lasers into the mix. Those are light. Maybe we can do something with different colors of light. Setting up little motion detecting lights as traps. This would rule. Maybe it's open world and it starts with the entire map being completely pitch black dark, and the goal of the game is to light up the map. You already had a car driving system with the headlights being weapons. It's sitting right in front of us. I am begging literally any developer to steal the Alan Wake combat system and put it in a game that's good. Let's go, I believe. Is Alan Wake some sort of masterpiece? Definitely not, but it's not garbage either, and I think it's worth the short runtime just to experience the combat system and think about what could be. I also hear that the DLC American Nightmare is very good, and both the base game and the DLC are available on GOG for very cheap, so make sure you check out my links down in the comments if you want to pick up Alan Wake. Hey, editing room, Jacob, back one more time. I just got an announcement while I was editing this video. The boys over at GOG are giving us an insane deal on this one, so if you want to get Alan Wake for it's like literally 80% off, go use my link. Thanks for watching, and let's send it back over to Jacob. And I think that's about all me and this water buffalo, water bison, whichever one. What are the animals that Joe Rogan is afraid of?
But they said the buffalo are around, and they can stamp you to death. I didn't know buffalo are so...
Black Death, they call them.
Really? What?
They fuck a lot of people up, man. They don't take any shit.
Have to say about Alan Wake. It's got some pretty good ideas, and I hope someday some indie developer out there somewhere with a little tiny team steals all of the ideas and does something wacky and neat. Listen, if you're watching this video right now, like and subscribe and hit the dumb fucking bell. You gotta do it. You have to. You watched the whole thing. You got this far. It's the rules. I'm on Twitter at ProbablyJacobIO. I stream on Twitch sometimes at ProbablyJacob Live on Twitch. And also, for as little as $2 a month, you too can head over to patreon.com/ProbablyJacob and subscribe for exclusive podcast content. And my podcast, Inherently Optimistic, is available pretty much wherever podcasts are. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one where we talk about... Oh, not video games. We're not talking about video games in the next one. Anyway, see you there. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, when I had all the lights turned out and I was filming the dark part of the intro, that shit was fucking scary. This building is uncool at night. It's not chill.